about when you should stop testing. Just as a reminder, we're in week 2 of the 30-Day Founder Blueprint. We're getting to the end of week 2. Week 1 was all about ideation, coming up with the type of business that you're going to start. This week has all been about ways that you can validate demand for it before you spend a lot of time, energy, and money building the solution, actually understanding if the demand is there. I've shown you all kinds of ways you can test and validate demand for what you're trying to do. But sometimes you should just stop because you validated that either it's a terrible idea or it's a really good idea and you should keep going. So today we're going to talk about a couple of signals to pay attention to as you're validating demand, and then you'll be able to make a decision. Do I pull the plug or do I keep going? Which is really, really key. A lot of people just keep going no matter what the signals are, but I want you to pay close attention to these. So the first signal we're going to talk about is in your customer interviews, which we've talked about this in a variety of videos. The most previous video in this succession of the 30-Day Founder Blueprint talks about 5 questions to ask in customer interviews. The signal to watch for in those, the first signal is if those interviews become very boring and repetitive. If you're learning the same things, whether good or bad things that you're learning over and over and over and over in all of your customer interviews, then it's probably time to act upon what you're learning. Okay, that's really, really important. So I talked about before, I did 100 interviews of customers when my product was suffering. During those, once I hit the point, it was right around 50 interviews. I know that sounds like a lot, but it was important to do to keep me from making mistakes. Right about the 50th interview or so is when I thought, I'm hearing the same things. I kept going and did more. And the lesson I learned from that is when the interviews get boring and repetitive, you're done. Just stop and don't do them anymore. Now, that's probably not true after like 2 or 3 interviews, but after say 20, 25, if you're hearing the same thing, that could be a good time to stop, specifically if the feedback is identical. If it's not identical, but it's close, maybe keep going a little bit further and validate one way or another. So what's happening here is what I call data saturation. So you're just getting to a point where you're getting all the same data over and over and over and over and over, and successive data points to that just really don't matter anymore. So once you hit saturation, usually about 15 identical answers over and over, back to back to back, not one here and then 10 interviews later you get the same thing. Back to back to back is a good time to stop. Okay, signal 2 is when you get a wallet open signal. Now, this is a really good time to stop, right? If you're getting successive amounts of people telling you, where do I write a check, right? Where can I buy this thing? Where can I sign up? Where can I spend my money? Take my money, right? That kind of thing. If you're getting that over and over and over, then it's time to stop validation and get on with making the product and selling it to people. That's where pre-sales come in, right? So if you run a validation test, let's say you run a landing page, and you get 100 people visit the landing page and 90 of them want to buy, it's time to stop the validation. It's time to start selling the product, right? Keep that in mind. Okay, signal number 3 is you can describe your customer with an alarming amount of specificity. And the way I say that in previous videos with you is you know them intimately. You know the exact ideal customer profile that you can satisfy. If you know it hyper specifically, you can just rattle it off bit by bit, then it's probably time to stop validating as well, because what's happened is you've learned your customers so well that you know everything you need to know about them to say that you would be able to validate whether or not there's demand for what you're trying to build it. So that type of detail is proof that you can map out your first users and a really good signal. Signal 4 is your low fidelity solution gets crazy amounts of results. So what do I mean by low fidelity? It's just a nice way of saying your minimum viable product, right? So if you build a prototype, and let's say you're building cases for iPads, and you spend a little bit of money kind of getting a very basic one made, and next thing you know, all kinds of people are converting, saying that they would pre-sell this thing through a crowdfunding campaign or something on Product Hunt or something like that. If you're getting feedback like, this is amazing, it just saved my life, right? That type of thing over and over. If your low fidelity solution is getting the type of results that you had hoped for, then it's time to stop. So another good way to say that is you build a low fidelity prototype, you build a low fidelity website, You put on there the ability to pre-buy something. If everybody that comes, like I talked about earlier, is buying, you're done. The last signal to talk about is when you hit diminishing returns. Now, this is just a general principle for life that I believe in. So I'm the type of person that moves really fast and make decisions really quickly. And then I look for diminishing returns on those decisions. And what do I mean by that? So as an example, let's say I'm writing a book. And instead of publishing a 100,000 word book, I could publish the same thing with 10,000 words, and I would get diminishing returns to do the extra 90,000 words. The idea is that there's doing just enough to make something valuable, right? So one way to do this is to time box it. So let's say that you set some goals. You've said, all right, I'm going to run an ad for 3 days, and I'm going to time box it for those 3 days. But if in the first day my conversion rate is over, 3 times industry standards. So let's say the normal conversion rate is 10%, which is high. Let's say it's 10%, and suddenly you're getting 30% conversion. You would get diminishing returns on that test if you kept going. You've seen the signal that you want to do, right? So a goal could be, I'm going to do 20 interviews, secure 3 pilots out of those 20. If you hit that number, anything beyond that is diminishing returns on your validation, and it's just a good time to stop. So a couple of ways, 5 different signals that you can gauge when it's time to just stop validation and get on with things. Just to reiterate them, interviews are boring. People are wanting to buy, so your wallet open signal. You can describe your ICP intimately. Your low fidelity solution gets high fidelity or high value results, and you're hitting a wall of diminishing returns. If you see one of these, you're starting to get the signal it's time to stop validation. If you see multiple of those, it's probably time to stop. And if you get every single one of them, you're spending too much time on validation. It's time to move on, get that product built, get that product sold, start getting that revenue coming in. We got one more day of the Founder Blueprint with validation, one more video in week 2. Week 3, as a reminder, we're going to move on to fundraising. How do you raise money for this, whether it's through debt or equity? That'll be in week 3. Hope you're enjoying it so far. Leave me a comment. Let me know what else you'd love to learn. I'd love to help you. Thanks.